Welcome to your Daily 5 for Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. It feels like I almost don't have to do reminders of this type of thing anymore because it seems like at this point everybody should be aware. But just because these little issues do pop up from time to time, another reminder for everybody not to rely on a cloud version of anything. Not that I'm inherently anti-cloud. I don't want it to come off that way. I do use the cloud for lots of things like most other people. At this point, you almost can't avoid using it in some way. But in particular, when it comes to storage, we've gotten another reminder that it's not the best idea to rely on it in the long term, or at least not for stuff that is critical. It's a nice backup, but it shouldn't be your only avenue of backing up. So for those who haven't seen anything about this, the Western Digital Cloud Services, I guess there's 3 or 4 of them that are affected, have been offline now for over a week from what I've seen in this article, where people are not able to, there's a workaround that does seem to be allowing most users to access their files, but essentially there was some kind of security incident, some kind of breach or whatever. I don't think they've really detailed from what I've seen what happened, but this essentially knocked out access to files for a lot of people until Western Digital announced, I think 3 or 4 days into the outage, that they had figured out a way for people to access their files using a separate account within their storage. Now, you can read all the technical stuff. There's lots of breakdowns of it, but essentially the underlying thing that, once again, this underscores is don't rely on the cloud for everything. It's just a bad idea. Certainly you can utilize it. Again, I use Carbonite for my backup. So I have one whole drive on my computer that backs up to Carbonite. And I also keep a local copy of that backup, of that drive, really. In fact, I'm getting a new computer. So what I did yesterday was I took that drive and I re-backed it up again, a fresh backup, to be ready to move to the new computer so that I can immediately have it accessible, even though I'm going to connect Carbonite to it. I'll put it on the new machine. It'll start backing up just like it did before. But on the off chance that Carbonite gets an intrusion, and honestly at this point, and this is not even necessarily meant to disparage Carbonite, so don't take it the wrong way. But I'm basically just counting on at some point that almost every cloud service I use, that at some point it's going to go down, whether it's because of an intrusion or because, I don't know, it gets acquired by a company that then destroys it. Who knows? But at this point, I don't rely on any of these things in the long term. And in some cases, that may not be a big deal. If you're only using it for something that's not really all that crucial, well, then yeah, don't worry about it too much. But if you are backing up critical files, photos, documentation for things like your taxes or your business, stuff that you really don't want to lose, then it's a very good idea not to rely on any one backup point. And especially you shouldn't rely on one backup point, period. Let's start right there. Whether it's local, cloud, notebook, don't rely on one backup source of any kind. That is just asking for trouble. But in particular, when it comes to a cloud solution, you should not be using that as your primary way of backing up. Or at least, I shouldn't say primary, that's the wrong term. It should not be your only backup point. Because again, at this point, with everything that's gone on in the last few years, but just even further than that, you should probably count on at some point, whatever cloud provider you're using for X service is probably going to go offline for some amount of time. Again, I don't even necessarily blame the companies in some case. I'm sure many of them are doing what they think is adequate security and feel like they are well protected, but there really is no such thing as well protected anymore because we've just seen that there are too many avenues that people exploit to get into these services. And you don't want to be stuck. You don't want to be stuck where this is where I feel really bad for these people to be over a week. I mean, they do have this workaround, but from what I've read, it does not work for everybody. So potentially there are people who, if they only relied on this particular backup, have been without access to files that they might need for not even just themselves, but again, for a small business or some kind of work that they're doing, and they don't have access to those files. And nobody wants to be in that position, man. Nobody wants to be stuck like that. So good, once again, just a nice alert, as if we need it anymore, that if you are relying on a cloud backup for anything critical, and it's your only means of backing up, that is basically a ticking time bomb, and you really don't want to be on the other end of it if it goes off. So back up in more than one place and make sure that they're not all in the cloud. Later.